how not to get fat as you bulk. Hey guys, welcome to the Massive Iron Channel. I'm Steve Shaw. In this video, I got a question from Scott, a viewer, who wants to know, as you progress beyond the beginner gains, how should you bulk? How aggressively should you bulk so you don't put on a lot of excess fat? I'm going to talk about that in this video. Before I do so, and this might be a long video, before I do so, if you have a question, check out the link below. Come on over, submit your questions. The best questions I turn into videos just like this. So Scott wants to know, as a beginner, you know that you pack on muscle mass. You should pack on muscle mass rather quickly. But as gains slow as a natural, how aggressively should you bulk? That's a very good question, and I'm going to try to detail that as good as I can. Before I do so, I want to establish a couple of baselines. First, you can build muscle at a calorie maintenance level. You can. How do I know this? I covered this in a previous video on the channel. But long story short, if you look at all the mass amount of studies done on lifting, on muscle building, you see that these lifters are adding muscle, but they're not told, the majority of these studies are not told how to eat. So we can assume from this fact that when a lifter is not given a structured eating plan, excuse me, I have allergies, that a lot of them are gaining muscle at a calorie maintenance level or around that level. So, is it necessary to bulk to build muscle? No, we can tell that from these studies. But on the other hand, we also know logically and using reason that the more you eat, the easier it is to build muscle. How do I know this? Well, a good example is the study done on sumo wrestlers. And there was a study done many years back on the lean muscle mass of sumo wrestlers. And it was found that the average sumo wrestler who was untrained, who didn't lift weights, had just about as much muscle mass as top natural bodybuilders. So what we know from this is that eating in a calorie surplus helps it doesn't just pack on fat, it'll help you pack on muscle mass. So if those two facts established, we know that you can build muscle at a maintenance level, but it won't be as aggressive. You won't get as good of a results as if you're bulking, and the sumo wrestler study kind of shows us that. So with that established, as a beginner, you're going to gain muscle mass at a quality rate. As the years pass, the gains are going to slow and slow and slow and slow. So how should you bulk? Okay, how should you bulk? Well, if you're at a normal weight, meaning you're not overweight and you're not carrying around a lot of fat, this is just a general recommendation. It's not for everybody, so don't take it as a hard and fast rule. It's just a general recommendation, and you can adjust your calorie surplus how you want. If you are a teen or in your early 20s, or even in your late 20s, I found that my metabolism slowed down about 27, 28 years old. But if you're around that age and still doing a lot of cardio and still rather active, you can eat more aggressively. With that said, if you, for gentlemen that are like 18 to 28, that are training properly, and if you don't train properly for progressive overload, and you can find more information in my book, Massive Iron, which is linked below. If you're not training aggressively for progressive overload, your bulk is just a fat gain plan. So you have to attack strength using good form. With that said, if you're doing that, you can bulk at about 400 to 500 calories above maintenance level, and that is your goal. That's a good starting point. With that starting point established, during your first year of training, you can gain the average. This is just the average. The average natural can gain about 15 to 16 pounds of muscle. So on a bulk, I don't want to see you gain more than 20 to 22 to 24 pounds during your first year if you are training hardcore. That is the caveat. If you're not training hardcore, not getting a lot stronger, the majority of those 20 to 24 pounds are simply going to be fat. You're going to pay the price if you don't train hard. So the beginner who is under 28 years old, I recommend a calorie surplus of 400 to 500 calories per day, and you want to gain about 2 pounds a month, about 2 pounds a month on average. The weight gained during a surplus during the first week or two doesn't count, because as you increase the number of calories you're eating, you're also increasing sodium and carbs and waste and all that kind of stuff. So you might see a slight weight gain the first week or two just from the calorie surplus, but ignore that. And after that first 2-week period, then you want to eat about 400 to 500. Then you want to gain about 2 pounds a month. So the lifter over 30, or the lifter who is in his later 20s or 30s, who's very inactive, I wouldn't do more than 300 calories above maintenance. Will it slow your gains a little bit? Yeah, you might only gain 12 to 13 pounds of muscle mass a year, the first year. But if you have a slow metabolism and you're an older gentleman, you don't want to get fat because of longevity reasons. Once you hit the age of 50, if you are over 240, 250 pounds, the longevity rates go like this. Okay, so if you're over 30 to 40 years old and you want to eat more aggressively and pack on fat and muscle mass, you risk an earlier grave. Just let that be known. So after that point, after the beginner stage, as an intermediate, the second year, the average intermediate can gain about 8 pounds of muscle. The third year, about 4 pounds of muscle. So the curve goes average, not a rule. The average natural can gain about 16 pounds of muscle the first year, 8 the second, 4 the third, and 2 the fourth. So during those intermediate years, the second and third year, where you're gaining 8 and 4 pounds of muscle mass, you have to adjust your calories accordingly. So once you've finished that first year, the lifter under 28, or the lifter with a fast metabolism, you want to slow that weight gain down to about, during the second year, to about a pound a month. That would give you a 12-pound increase and allow you to gain about 8 pounds of muscle mass. And again, this is just a starting point. And in theory, all this works perfectly, but in application, sometimes the numbers are going to be a little bit different. So the person with a good metabolism is going to be starting at about 450, 400, 450, 500 calories above maintenance, with the goal of zeroing in on 2 pounds gained per month. That same person during their second year wants to gain about a pound a month, and during the third year wants to gain about a half pound a month. And after that, you're just gaining pounds and you're just gaining ounces. So you really probably don't want to eat more than 100 calories above maintenance, or you just want to stay right around maintenance for the rest of your lifting career and just slowly accrue those last few pounds of muscle mass. So what are the calories above maintenance for this person with a high metabolism? Well, if you started at 450 to 500 calories above maintenance during your first year, by the time you zero in and find how many calories you need to eat per day to gain about 2 pounds per month, you're pretty much equipped to drop that a little bit during year 2. Year 2, I'd probably drop that by a couple hundred and just, again, try to gain about a pound a month during year 2. So you're going to have to dial those calories down a little bit from that starting point so you can reach that optimal 1 pound gain per month the second year and a half pound the third year. Now for the older individual, or the individuals with slower metabolisms, it's going to be the same thing. You don't want to be bulking aggressively, so you're not going to be eating that much over maintenance, 250 to 300 over maintenance during your first year. And if you're experiencing good gains, or you're experiencing good gains and not adding on a lot of fat, you can just stay at that level because you're not adding a lot of fat. So while the person with the slow metabolism, or the older individual, is more conservative out of the gate with muscle mass, if they're not gaining a lot of fat, they can sustain that income a little bit longer because they're not putting on a lot of fat. But just keep in mind that after the first 2 years of quality gains, rates are going to slow dramatically for the older individual. So or the individual with a slower metabolism. So after the second and third year of good gains, you pretty much want to drop the maintenance level. So that is the best overview I can give you guys on how aggressively to bulk. I've given you some good starting points. You really have to, the art of this is really dialing in your calories and getting those rates of those pounds per month that you're after. The target of 2 pounds per month for the beginner, the first year, 1 pound per month for the younger individual, second year, and so on and so forth. So if you're looking for specific numbers and statistics and how far to pull this back and how far to pull that back, I can't do that for you. I can only give you starting points and some reasonable advice on how aggressively to bulk. But just know, if you're making good gains, after the first 2 to 3 years, you really need to slow your calorie intake down to maintenance or just a hair above, or else you're just going to pack on a lot of fat. Muscle mass, rates of muscle mass gains slow dramatically after year 3 to 4. You're just chasing pounds and ounces after that time, so there's no reason to aggressively bulk. There are some guys out there who believe that they can get as big as the steroid bodybuilders if they just train hard enough and keep eating enough food. That's a fairy tale, and if you do that after you've made good gains for 3 to 4 years, you're just going to get fat. Mark my words. So guys, hope this video has been of some help. If you have any questions or comments, check out the link below. If you've made it this far in this video and have yet to subscribe to my channel, please do. I'd appreciate the support. So guys, as always, thanks for watching. Have a great day.